right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for my conversation with Francisco Valverde. He's an exhibiting artist with the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. He's had an illustrious career, and we're going to learn more about that with him. We're going to learn more about him as a person. We're going to hear about his art. Before we get started, I want to introduce this new program and then also thank some people who have made the exhibition possible. Thank you everyone for joining me for the Fort Wayne Museum of Art's newest series in which we talk to artists that with work in our museum. I'm Amanda Shepard, Vice President and COO at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. Tonight we'll meet Francisco Valverde, an artist whose work I encountered at SOFA in Chicago in 2018. SOFA is a huge contemporary art expo at Navy Pier, and I am not lying when I say to you that Francisco's work was my favorite, and we offered him a show on the spot. Before we hear from Francisco, I have some thanks to give. Support for his exhibition in Fort Wayne is by Clifford and Eve Clark, Fred and Mariana Feitler, 6 anonymous donors, Kathy Callan and John Powell, and Kathleen Summers, who all gave to the Fort Wayne Museum of Art Annual Fund in 2019. Support for the exhibition was also inspired by Jean Blinds of Bloomington, Illinois. Finally, the Fort Wayne Museum of Art is funded in part by Arts United of Greater Fort Wayne. This activity is made possible in part with generous support from the Indiana Arts Commission and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency. Well, Francisco, I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit nervous, and you might be too. So that's why I thought we could start out with some icebreaker questions to get to know you better. Are you down for that?
Perfect.
Okay, all right. We're just going to dive right into it. My first question is, have you ever been told that you look like someone famous? If so, who?
Not really.
Okay, I'll tell you right now, you look like George Clooney.
Okay.
And
I hope so.
That's right. Okay, my next question is, what talent would you have if you were Mr. World?
Well, I think right now I will definitely come up with the vaccine for coronavirus.
Okay. That would be a talent we all could use right now.
Very helpful.
Okay, so I'm gonna spin off that question. That's a necessary talent. If you could have a fun talent, what would it be?
Flying.
Flying. Okay, I'll take that. What is your favorite mythological animal? And you cannot say unicorn.
What's the name of the one with the horns? Minotaurus?
The what?
The one with the horns. It's half.
Oh, like a minotaur?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. What is your favorite plant?
Well, there is a tree here in Mexico. I don't know what's called in the US, but it's called golden rain of gold.
Rain of gold. Tell us about that.
Well, the color is extremely bright, and it's yellow, the color. And it's extremely bright, the color. So that's why it's, golden rain. That's why the name. And it's so beautiful. I mean, I will definitely send you a photograph.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. If you could rename yourself, what would you pick?
Well, there's been so many times people have called me Fernando that so that maybe I should have been a Fernando.
Okay. That's really nice. You're very accommodating for people.
It's the flow, so.
Yeah. Okay, this is my last question for you. What is your favorite scent?
Smell. No.
Smell it?
No. Eyesight.
Scent, like SCENT. Like
Um,
your favorite
yeah,
smell?
I know the smell. Eucalyptus, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Okay, you passed the test. So for everybody watching, Francisco is my friend, but we've only met once. We met in that Chicago Expo, and we've become friends because we planned your exhibition together, and we met briefly at that expo in Chicago. And when I saw your work, there's a lot of art at that expo. How many times have you shown there?
Twice,
Well,
2 times.
the whole show is about a mile long on
Yeah,
Navy
yeah,
Pier. There's
yeah.
there's hundreds of artists, and I have to tell you that your work, it stuck out to me from all the other artists, and there's some really good work in that show. So it felt really serendipitous to encounter your work, and then to find out that you have an Indiana gallery. And I thought, what a better opportunity than to have an exhibition with this artist's work. So it's been such a fun couple of years, even though we've only had the chance to really connect over email. It's been a really rewarding experience for me as well. I'm sure everybody watching wants to know about you and your development as an artist. I think it's really interesting for people to know how you developed your talents and how you got to where you are today. Can you tell us about your development as an artist? And then maybe when did you first know that you would become an artist, and how did you nurture that into a career?
Well, I never really thought I was going to be an artist. I mean, for a living, I mean, as far as like being a professional full-time painter or visual artist, but it was until maybe my senior year at high school that, you have to start thinking about what you want to study, what do you want to go to school for. And I couldn't really see myself doing anything. I mean, like the main things that people go to school to, like law or being a doctor, like more traditional things. And then I started thinking I was in trouble because it's like, what should I do? I don't really, I don't really like many of these things. And then I realized it kind of worked the way around it. First, I noticed what I didn't like, and then I ended up um, liking art as an option. I remember my mom used to have an art encyclopedia, and one of those art encyclopedias that they have like a briefing of a lot of painters, artists from different periods, like the Spanish or the Cubism period or Impressionism, like the whole movements. And then I remember I used to read all the time, like the lives of these people. And then at some point I thought, I want to be like them. That's my dream. And then I remember I always liked to draw in school and things like that. And then I decided to start taking art lessons and start learning more about techniques and things. And I was completely excited about the option, and it just felt right for me. And like sometimes people tell you, oh, you should, instead of studying, I don't know, BFA visual arts, maybe you should try architecture or graphic design so you can make a living.
Something practical, right?
Exactly. Everyone in your family is like so afraid that you want to be an artist. Like, please, no. And then, and then I thought I'm gonna go all the way. If I'm really gonna do it, I don't. I always thought that staying in the middle, it was the worst.
Mhm.
The risk, it was never being happy, pretty much. So that's why I decided to try it and see if I could make it. And it's funny because most of the people tell you that it's going to be so complicated and it's going to be so horrible and that it's going to be so miserable in so many ways.
And are those people artists who are telling you that?
No.
Okay.
No. But that's like pretty much the stereotypes, right? I mean, they can really make a living. So, and I thought, well, that's what I want to do. So that's how I ended up going to school for visual arts. and it all made sense right away. Looking back now, I didn't really never really like school that much. The themes that they used to teach me and the courses, I wasn't really that much into it. So until finally, I was at school. I mean, for my BFA, and finally it all made sense. Finally, when I was going to my art education. So that's pretty much how I ended up being an artist.
So tell us though, I think a lot of people are curious. Okay, it's one thing to go to art school, but it's another thing to actually try to make a living and going to classes. It's sort of your obligation. It's what you have to do to get the degree. But after that, it's really up to you to try to carve your own path. Can you tell us about the period after school and what you did to try to develop and become a working artist?
Well, first of all, I started putting together like a portfolio, a body of work that I could show to galleries, first in Mexico City. And then finally, it was like, I think it was like 2001, I had my first exhibition in I will say, a pretty decent art gallery. And then things started, coming along, starting from that exhibition. And sooner or later, I mean, it was kind of like waves. Sometimes I will have a lot of shows and less, and things will go better and bad. It was kind of like it's not a straight line. But I remember, then after that, I remember I met Evan at some point, which has a gallery in Carmel, Indiana. And then it took me about, I would say, I think the hardest part is to know what you want to do as far as art, who you are as an artist. I think that's the hardest part, to really know what you want to express. Because nobody can really teach you, even if you go to school, nobody can really teach you that. You have to go deep down and kind of figure that for yourself. What's your real interest in painting or whatever is it that you do? I mean, if it's photography or conceptual art, or you have to figure out what speaks to you. And the way I see it, to me, it's like being an artist is pretty much like looking at yourself in a mirror. You have to see what you like. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like an illusion in so many ways, but you have to end up, it's a search about finally being in peace with yourself and liking what you see. And there is so many options that you try that you don't like. So you have to keep trying. And to me, that's the hardest part, because nobody really even told me that when I was going through school. And I think 99% of the process was after school, like you're just saying. So it took me about maybe 10 years to really come along and start figuring out what I wanted to do.
And see, only you know what the right thing is. It's one thing to have a lot of skill and to be able to paint a beautiful still life that looks exactly like a still life. And someone might look at that and say, man, that's beautiful. That guy is a really great artist. And you might look at that and say, it's terrible. It's not me. It's not what I want to say. It's not what I want to do. And you're really dissatisfied with it. You are the only one that knows if you're being true to what you want to and need to say as an artist.
Being honest. Yes.
Yeah. So I read that you had done a lot of figurative work before doing the really material, abstract work that we see in the exhibition. So talk about that evolution as well.
For a long time, I really enjoyed painting. It was kind of like I would say, kind of like surreal type of painting style. And I really enjoyed coming up with characters. It was more like in the tradition of surrealism. And then at some point, it just didn't make any sense anymore. I just wasn't happy. And then I really went through a crisis because I thought if I don't really know what I want to do, I guess I'm in trouble. So, and then it took me about a year or two to realize, I mean, I had to go back to the basics because I realized, for example, I have used for example, the brushes for so long that even if I try to do something different, the same thing will start happening again. I will start painting a face or kind of like the same style. And then I started thinking why I wanted to be an artist for the very first time. So I remember that I was a little kid, and you know, like when you noodle, when you're in a classroom and you're not really paying attention at all, and you're doodling like in a piece of paper or just like with a pen, or you're not really trying to do any art at all. Nothing makes sense. You're not thinking about being an artist. So then I realized that for me it was either trying to escape, trying to leave the classroom that I was in, or or trying to go somewhere. I mean, there's so many ways that you can look at it, but the feeling that I had while I was doing that, that's why I wanted to really recreate. It was a feeling of being in peace with myself, of being in touch with myself. And to be honest, in those moments, everything seemed to make sense. So that's why I realized maybe that I should try something completely different and try to recreate that feeling that I wanted, that made me wanted to be an artist. So I stopped using the brushes. I started playing with ketchup bottles of plastic, you know, those red, white, and yellow, you know, the typical diner plastic bottles that you use. And then I started playing around first with acrylic paint, and then with different kinds of paint, with acrylic, polyethylene, what else I used? Or acrylic with varnishes. And then finally, I started doing the drips first with acrylic. And then finally, a friend of mine told me that it's an artist, told me, why you don't try epoxy resin? I think it will really make sense for what you're trying to do because of the material and everything. So I started playing around with epoxy resin and everything made so much sense. And that's when everything really came together, to be honest. And then from there, it was just learning more about the material itself and evolving in that style.
So you gave up brushes completely.
Completely.
You don't use brushes at all.
No, I don't use them anymore.
Okay, tell us about resin. Is that toxic? Is that risky to use?
It is pretty toxic. I mean, I wear a mask every time I use it. The thing about epoxy is not really paint to begin with. So that's something I really liked, because you're not even painting in a traditional way. You're pretty much pouring, you know, the resin and moving it, but it's more of a accumulation of material and flow, and it's a different thing. But epoxy resin, yes, it's pretty, I mean, I wouldn't say, well, let's say it's not healthy.
I'm not judging you. I just, yeah, I mean,
but
if people follow you on Instagram, you know, they'll see the inside of your studio. It's a pretty formidable space. You know, it's not like, oh, a nice little room. Like, it's a pretty serious space, and working with a material like that is a job in itself. So I just wanted to hear you talk about that for a minute.
It's a very, well, first, it's a very messy material. You can't really, I mean, at least the way I use it, it's extremely messy. I mean, you have to change completely every day when you walk into the studio, have a mask, and it's very sticky. The material, you know, it comes in two parts. The resin plus the component, it's called component A and B, and one helps the resin to cure or dry. So, but the material, it's kind of like glass, liquid glass. And the richness and how bright it is, it's kind of like liquid plastic. And since the first time I used it, I really liked it because it's so, it almost feels like toys or candies. The way it looks, the way it shines, it's so, to me, it's so interesting that it's so synthetic,
Mhm,
and then at the same time, it's so appealing.
mhm.
It's nothing, and then it takes about 6 hours to dry completely. So each layer, if I'm doing a background, it takes a while from one layer to the next, or if I'm dripping it, it takes a while also. So it's about doing a lot of layers through a long periods of time, layers and layers. And then the epoxy resin is transparent, of course. And I use, they're called polypigments. And you pretty much, you can only use the basic red, blue, yellow. And then I make my own colors. I mix them a lot. And then you can come up with the whole color wheel, basically.
So at this point, I'm going to pull up X, the shaped canvas in our show. I want you to talk about that. I know that our viewers will notice the dripping of the resin. It's very noticeable. They drip off the side of the paintings. And then this painting in particular, there are three very noticeable layers, and I hope you can talk about those layers and how you made this work.
Perfect. Well, first, what I did on this particular painting, I was trying to play with the shape itself. It's not the typical rectangular format or panel. It's a wood panel, but I wanted to try like a different shape, so it became more like a sculpture. I like to think of my paintings not only as two-dimensional surfaces, but also as something else, as a device or a sculpture or something that it's a lot more than just a flat painting. And at the same time, it gives us the sense of depth and space, regardless the fact that there are only stripes, which are completely flat. So it's kind of like an illusion that I'm playing with. And then I first did the black and white background, and this whole idea of the X, I was playing around with graffiti, and it's not the typical graffiti, but I always liked looking at the stencil paintings. So I was trying to come up with one in my own way and my own terms. So I decided to try an X in the background, like these symbols that I gravitate towards, which I really like. And then I started dripping the paint, well, not the paint, the resin on top. A lot. That painting probably has 40 layers of stripes. So that's why the drips themselves are so big. So they're really about a lot of layering and building them up.
So I'm assuming you build your own panels.
Yes, I build my own panels.
Start by building the panel, and then how do you get that swirling background? Is there a tool you use to make those swirls?
Basically, I use my hands. I put the resin on buckets and I start throwing all the resin on top of the, it's a very intuitive process. Mm-hmm. To me, it's kind of like recording a certain moment, feeling, emotion in time, and just kind of like froze it. You know, it's mm-hmm. like it's more intuitive until it has to feel right. The way many times accidents happen, they a lot of times work, and that's what I like about it. It's about the backgrounds are very free, very playful and gestural. So they're way different than when I start painting the stripes. So they're a lot more experimental, I guess you could say. But I move the resin with my hands, and I stop till it makes sense.
So this one, you said had 40 layers. It took 10 days to dry?
No, between each layer takes about from 4 to 5 hours. So it took me about 3 weeks to paint it.
Okay. Well, you know, even in artist standards, that's not a very long time to
Exactly,
complete a work.
exactly.
Just curious about that. Okay, so you have this really deep, swirling, atmospheric, almost universe back there, but then you kind of pin it down with that X.
Yes, I like the contrast between the X and the background.
Mm-hmm,
Almost like it becomes almost like a symbol
mm-hmm.
in its own way. So it came very graphic, and I like just how it feels. I just like it. You know, it feels more um, very symbolic, even if it's just my own personal symbol. I just like the way the gold and interacts with the background.
Now,
It's also a second layer of depth. Like you have the stripes, you have the X, and then you have the background. So there is always something more to look at that you're discovering through the process.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, are you choosing the colors intuitively, or do the different color pairings have any significance?
It's very intuitive for me. Colors, they just have to make sense. I mean, I keep working till they work to me, until I feel that they're working together. So I don't really think about the palette before I start the painting. I'll figure it out through the process and through painting it. Basically, it's kind of like rebuilding the painting itself. It's already there, but you have to make it come alive. You know, it's not, and in so many ways, the painting controls me, not me controlling the painting. So that's
Mm-hmm. It sounds as though you really love material and you love the process and the experience, but I think a lot of people want to try to ascribe some kind of really deep meaning to a work. And would you say that there's any kind of deep or hidden meaning, or is it really you experiencing and relating to the material?
well, I think it's more of a personal universe. It's what I'm feeling while I'm doing the painting and everything that gets frozen in the painting.
Mm-hmm.
I also think everyone reacts different to the painting. So to me, it's more about how people react to the material itself. And when I talk about material, it's more about, for example, if you look at those paintings from the Renaissance, and regardless the fact that they are a portrait or a landscape, they have a material quality. The way the layers were the glazing, for example, the light, all the varnishes, the way the spiritual aspect of paint itself, regardless of the image. So I think that's a spiritual aspect of painting that to me is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So when I create these paintings, they're more about how you react to them uh, through the senses, through the color, through the shapes, and it has to do with it's the material itself becomes the art in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of something that you said in an interview. You talked about a phobia of painting, that you noticed that some contemporary artists or critics, they seem to have a phobia of painting, and you didn't understand that. Can you talk to us more about that?
Well, there is this idea that, especially about post art, you know, art after the death of art, right? So um, I think that a lot of people think, well, I don't know if a lot, but in the art world, basically, that there is not really much to be done as far as painting, that everything that you could do or you can give to art through painting, that it's really not much to go anymore, that it's pretty much everything is done. Nothing is going to be new. And that's such a post-modern idea as well, that nothing is really new. Everything, we've seen everything, especially now with all the publicity, television, cinema, all the advertising. I mean, we see images all the time through so many ways that nothing is really new. So everything seems to be, that's why I think conceptual art became so big, right? Because it's about, you have to contribute to the art. But I think in so many ways also, we can recreate, reconfigure movements or themes or ideas that were used in the past and see them through a different lens, which I think it can definitely work. And that's what I mean kind of for the, when I say that there's a really big phobia for painting, that you're a painter, so there's not really much you can say anymore. I'm not saying for everyone, but there's this idea that sometimes you encounter. Yeah. And I think it's not necessarily true. I think in the complete opposite, there is a lot to bring into the light that gives new meaning to things.
Well, and not only, I agree with you, not only is it not true, but if we lived by that, we'd never make anything else. No one would ever make any art because they're living under this cloud of, oh, well, I'm not going to make anything new or special, therefore I won't even try. It would be the end of art as we know it. And you and I both know various artists and critics have declared the end of painting multiple times. As if like, well, this is the artist that concludes it all for us. Thank you very much. We can all go home now.
Exactly.
What a terrible thought. And it's really interesting to read that history, and I understand what they're trying to say, but that sounds like doomsday to me.
Uh-huh. No, I agree.
I wouldn't even be talking if that were true.
Exactly. I mean, like you just said, I mean, painting must go on. I mean, I think also it has to do with the fact that now we have to be so amazed by everything. Everything has to be such an incredible out of this planet experience that everything is like mind-blowing. I mean, it's completely something that you've never seen before. So it's more about that than anything else, I think. And to be honest, I think there's a lot of ways to come up with meaning in paintings that you can recombine so many schools of painting, for example, and you can bring in some new ideas or new thoughts to a process, to a certain aesthetics or philosophy that can be looked at again, even in a different way, which to me is also a very important aspect of history. You have to look back at things, and things don't make sense in the same way. They always keep changing and evolving and becoming something different. And I think that's a very attractive idea.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the criticism that a lot of people will have of a certain artist, or, oh, that work is derivative, and it's like, well, maybe you could put it in a more positive light and say that artist is continuing the story or continuing the idea. One idea doesn't belong to one artist exclusively.
Exactly.
What would again, it'd be terrible if one idea ended with one person and we didn't have more creators of the subsequent generations picking up the ball where somebody else left it.
Exactly. Just imagine I think also that there are things that are bigger than just one person. And they have such a bigger meaning collectively through many, for example, the Renaissance period, for example, when painting, everybody was painting in the same style. I mean, you look at a Raphael and it looks like, it could be so many painters. I mean, it looks very similar. That's what I'm trying to say. and at the same time so different, because between those small details you can see the style of a certain hand or a certain artist, but at the same time it was a movement that it was, well, I mean, it was a school of painting that it was so much bigger than one person in particular. And I think that's what you were just saying, that it will be so sad in so many ways that if someone dies, okay, it's over. This, you know, it's
Yeah.
the end. That's it.
Well, I mean, how cool would it be if in 100, 200, 300 years, there's a person that's like, man, Francisco Valverde, like that guy, and they start, mimicking your style and working with these resins. And they're like, hey, back in 2020, they didn't have this kind of resin, or they didn't have this kind of tool, but I have the tool and I'm picking up, where he left it. I mean, that's such a wonderful thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think that's why the effort it's so much more important than only one person, basically.
Yeah. So you've had some success in your career. So can you talk to us about, are there differences between the art world in Mexico and the art world in the United States?
Yes, I mean, I think in the US, there is a lot more, that the art world has so much, I mean, in so many ways, there is it's very rich as far as options. You see so many different types of painting, art. And also I think that if you want to go, I mean, if you want to talk about going global, I mean, of course, everything nowadays, we know everything pretty much. You have to play, especially in the art market, you have to go global, and that means you have to play in the art world of the US in so many ways, because a lot of the shows are there. I mean, I really think that if you really want to be successful and well known, at some point you really have to work or become known in the US or work with a US gallery. It's just the way it works. I mean, people can like that or not, but but that's just the way it is. Just, and also if you talk about the market, that's kind of like the biggest market you can be in. I mean, it's just think about the art fairs, for example. How many of them happening in the US? And they're so big. For example, Art Miami. If you think about that whole week, there is like more than 20 or even more so art shows happening 1 week. More than likely, it's going to change a lot after the coronavirus. But what I'm trying to go to is that the way I see it is that's where everything kind of meets in so many ways. That's where you see other artists, for example, from Italy or France, or that's where kind of like in so many ways everything combines. So I think that's the biggest difference there is. Where in Mexico everything might be a little bit more local, even though there can be a lot of very trendy conceptual art. At the same time, it's more local in its own way of thinking and the way it interacts with people, and that's basically the main difference.
Let's talk about critics for a minute. I'm sure you could get a lot of praise for your work. What about criticisms? How do you respond to people that may or may not like your work? I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't, but there's always people that have something to say, whether good or bad. How do you handle that as an artist?
I try not to take everything so personal. I think that's an idea I like to follow. And also, people speak from where they come from. So in that sense, it's even more so, nothing is really personal. So if you really connect to an energy or thought that you don't really like, pretty much you're gonna go crazy because you don't really understand where the comment is coming from. You're not gonna change anything. You're gonna keep doing exactly what you do. So it's not really gonna help you in any way, basically. So I like the idea of kind of let it pass, basically. As long as I keep loving it and I keep enjoying what I do, and I feel deep down that what I do is honest and it's what I really want to do, I just keep going. And I don't, to be honest, I don't really, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it can hurt a little, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. No, I mean, we're all human, right?
yes, but you have to let it go. If you let it grow inside of you, it doesn't help you go anywhere that is positive. That's what I wanted to say, basically. It doesn't
Yeah.
really help you at all.
Before I get to my last question, if anybody watching wants to type in a question for us, please feel free to type it in the comments box and we will get to that. So on that same note of what people say, I hear a lot people say like, I don't like modern art, or I don't like abstract art. I don't understand it. What do you say to that? And not necessarily, in a defensive way, but how do you defend abstract art?
Well, first of all, I don't think you necessarily have to understand it. I mean, there are so many things we don't understand and we like them. I mean, so yeah. So I think that's not really an issue. We're just so used to that we have to completely understand everything. Otherwise, we are even afraid that we like it. I mean, so there are so many things that we don't really know anything about. I mean, the world would be a disaster if we had to understand everything in order to like it. So,
Yeah.
um, so I really think it's easier to understand. I mean, I'm not saying this is 100% true because there's always an exception. For example, representational type of work, what you see is what you get in so many ways. I'm not saying it's less important or meaningful, but all I'm saying, it has a quicker read. You see a face, you see a landscape, you see, even if it's really contemporary, if you can look at an image and kind of resolve it. And then I think abstract art in so many ways, it can challenge you because it's not trying to represent anything other than, to me, an invisible kind of world, more poetic. It has to do more with the way something makes you feel, the way you react to something, what you want to express, what you want to say. And I think people sometimes what I think personally, sometimes people are even afraid of connecting with something that they don't fully understand. Um, and to me, abstract art has to do a lot with that option that you have to you have to take yourself somewhere else different than just looking at an image and come up with a solution or a quick read of what it is. So I think in so many ways, that's what people end up, well, I don't like it. I don't understand it. I hate it. So,
You have
and
to,
that's not necessarily true.
yeah, when you're looking at abstract art, you have to observe yourself observing it. And
Exactly.
I think that self-reflection, I don't know if we're out of practice, if we don't like to do it, if it's too, like you said, looking inside of yourself. But I agree with you that, we want to get something like reading a map, like that's self-evident right there. But then when we look at something that's just beautiful, that's just a exploration of material, or you know, like your work, for example, we sometimes get upset because we don't know what we're looking at and why are you making me look at this? And in so many ways, you could just enjoy the material and get so much out of it.
Yes, I think also we're not used to being to think about something, to be more, to take our time, to try to understand what something makes us feel. We're more for a quick fix. You know, it's like a fast, quick fix, something that it's not necessarily easy, but quicker. If it's gonna take longer, I don't know. So, and then I think it's like, I think it has to do more with our culture all over the place. Basically, we want to do, we want to understand everything pretty fast. And there are certain things that do take longer and take some other type of work. Basically, the process is different. It's not going to be like watching a Netflix series. It's going to be different. So I think we're not just so used to it, basically.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. This has been a really, really nice conversation. And if there's anything else that you want to share with us or talk with us about, I'd love to give you the opportunity now.
Well, I will only say that please keep going to museums. I think that art definitely has the possibility of making the world a better place, and culture in general. I think that we have no idea how big it is and what it really means for the entire world. And if we only take a look around us and see how the arts in general shape the world we live in so many forms and ways that we don't even realize it. That's through art. So I think more than ever, we should really try to make painting, reading, whatever it is, try to make it part of our lives. I think that's something humanity really should really have a second thought about. I think really can help us overall.
I agree. It's why I've built my career here, and it's why I believe in it so much. We have one question from Anthony, and he would like to know if you will be in Fort Wayne in the future.
I was planning to until the coronavirus, but I definitely would love to see the museum in person.
Okay, I'm inviting you. It's
Okay.
done. Decision made.
I would love to. Yeah.
Good, good. This has been a true delight for me. You've been so good to talk to and so honest and wonderful for all of our viewers. I know that everybody is so happy that they get to meet you, even if it's on Facebook, but I think this has really turned out for the best. I don't know that I could imagine anything better.
It was great. Thank you so much, Amanda. And just this whole process for the exhibition, since we met the very first time at SOFA, it's been a lot of fun. And then we are even going through the coronavirus crisis together. So
yeah, I know. And you've been so good to us to lend us the work through August. You know, if you hadn't agreed to that, your show would have only been on view for like 2.5, 3 weeks maybe. So it was supposed to have closed, I think, May 17th, but you've graciously agreed to let us keep it through August. So that's just, I'm so happy that we could do that for our visitors. A lot of people have commented on the video that we made of your work, saying they can't wait to get back in and see your show. It's just been such a good and fun thing for me personally, and so good for this museum in Fort Wayne.
Thank you so much. It's been a really great experience.
Oh, I think we have one question here. This is from, okay, this is from my sister Emily.
Okay.
She is asking, the linear aspects of your work make me think about math. Are you interested in math?
I guess not in a formal way, but it definitely has to do something with the geometric. I mean, I would say my paintings are completely geometric, but lines are definitely part of math. You know, it's one line goes from one point to another. That's the basics of math in so many ways. So I will say yes, not in a formal way, but I think I like the way, um, I don't know if unconsciously I'm trying to come up with an order of things. Uh, I'm trying to give order to chaos in so many ways. So I don't know if that has to do something with math, which is trying to resolve a problem or giving order to something.
You know what it makes
Uh,
me think of, Francisco? I think, you talk about what's behind the curtain, and then the title of your show is called Hidden Truths. And, we think of the universe as this swirling, chaotic place, but there's actually a logic order to it. And, I see you in your work working with the tension of the logic order and the swirling, I guess if you want to call it chaotic universe.
Yes.
It's like you have this really like woo in the background, and then it's like, no, there's meaning to this. You give meaning and you give structure to it.
Yes.
And even math, as logical and ordered as it is, it's an abstract science.
Mhm.
And
Completely abstract, yes.
yeah, I mean, as much as it is the sense of the universe, it's all it's an abstract truth, if that makes any sense at all.
And I also, now that you mention it, I also think, because of the title of the show, I always say to myself that, to me, it's a lot more attractive what's between the lines, meaning if you are reading something, what's between the lines, that the lines themselves.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like the hidden truth. There is always something that is more meaningful, and it's deeper than the first, than what it appears to be, basically. So that's why I always think of that. It's not really what you're reading, but what's between the lines of what you're reading. And I really like that idea. I enjoy it. And to me, it has to do a lot about the way life works, basically. Nothing really is what it appears to be. In so many ways, everything is completely something else, or the meaning, or what it really is not really in the first read of something.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. I'm gonna end on that amazing note. You have been so wonderful and so awesome on this conversation. I thank you so much, and really am so pleased that we were able to do this for all of our people in Fort Wayne that unfortunately can't really see you in person.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And I hope to visit the museum soon.
Me too. Okay,
Thank
good
you.
night. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.